Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, the 15th of October, 2018, the 6th of Cheshvan, Mar Cheshvan, 5779. Broadcasting today from Jerusalem. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Don't forget, you can get in touch with me always. Josh at thelandofisrael.com on Facebook, Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. I'm here with my main man, Binyamin Bresky, engineer extraordinaire. Without him, there's no sound. We got a lot to talk about on today's episode of Israel Uncensored. My guest in just a few minutes will be the one and only Yishai Fleisher, host here on the Land of Israel Network. In addition, he is the international spokesperson for the Jewish community in the ancient biblical town of Hebron. That's right, Hebron, the Jewish biblical town, not whatever UNESCO claims it is. It is the Jewish town of Hebron. The government yesterday approved the establishment of a new Jewish neighborhood in Hebron, the first such construction in 16 years. So who better to talk about that than the one and only Yishai Fleisher? But we got a lot of news to cover until Yishai comes on the program. We'll start with this. Just saw this as I was heading here to the studio. Supreme Court Judge David Mintz was driving in his car near his home, near the community of Dolev, that's in the Binyamin region north of Jerusalem this morning, when there was an attempted attack on him, on the Supreme Court judge here in Israel. So it doesn't matter if you're a Supreme Court judge, if you're just a simple Jew, you have to be vigilant. So what happened was he was driving on his car on Road 463 at the Har Passah Junction, according to the Jerusalem Post, when an Arab vehicle with Palestinian Authority plates blocked him. 3 people got out of the car, including someone with a hammer. So Mintz stepped on the gas and got out of there. Who knows what would have happened? A near lynching, a potential lynching. This could have ended terribly. Again, doesn't matter who you are here. And my message to everyone out there on the roads is stay vigilant with the daily rock attacks, firebomb attacks, and everything else that goes on the roads of Jerusalem, and Judea and Samaria throughout the country. Our enemies are out there. Stay vigilant. Speaking of our enemies, I think we brought this up. So I'm not sure if we discussed it in its entirety last week. I don't think we knew exactly what happened at the time. But the horrible terror attack in Barkan, 2 Israelis murdered by an Arab jihadist, a terrorist, last Sunday in that industrial zone. The troops, IDF troops, still searching for Asaf Naalawa, the suspected terrorist in that attack, which claimed the lives of Kim Levengrad Yecheskel and Ziv Hajbi at the Barkan Industrial Zone factory. So the IDF is still in search of that terrorist, and the army this morning issued a demolition order for the suspect's home. Now, we've seen the IDF implement the policy of home demolitions time and time again. Sometimes they destroy the house, sometimes they destroy the room of the terrorist. I don't think it's working. I don't think that is a strong enough deterrence. I think that we have to do much, much more, starting by expelling the family from Judea and Samaria, sending them, drop them off in Gaza, drop them off in Syria, drop them off somewhere. There has to be a greater deterrence. We've talked about this on the show time and time again in terms of what overall needs to be done in the war against jihadist terror here in Israel. But the number one, or the first thing that needs to happen, is to create a real deterrence. The family needs to know there are going to be serious ramifications. If you're going to destroy the house, you do it the day of the attack. You don't wait. I studied psychology, and they always said that the wrong thing to do in terms of punishing a child is to say, you just wait until your father gets home. That is the wrong thing to do from what I learned. You don't wait until the kid forgets about exactly what it is that he's going to be punished for. Punishment has to come immediately. Basics in psychology. So if you're going to demolish the house, do it right away. Secondly, I do not think that this is creating a strong enough deterrence. I think Israel needs to do much, much more. I believe in the death penalty for the terrorist. I believe that the family should be expelled. There needs to be a stronger deterrence for those who are carrying out these murderous, in this case, an execution attack against Jews here in the land of Israel. Turning now to the situation in Gaza in southern Israel, our leaders issuing further threats. The Prime Minister of the State of Israel and Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman. If Hamas does not stop its violent attacks against Israel, Israel will stop them through forceful actions. Prime Minister Netanyahu warned at Sunday's cabinet meeting. My problem with this is we've heard time and time again all of the threats against Hamas. Netanyahu added Israel's very close to a different type of action that will include very forceful blows. He said that if Hamas were smart, they would stop the fire and the violent riots now. This reported by the Jerusalem Post. Again, so much talk. If only they do one more thing. If only this, if only that. We've heard this time and time again, and I'm not advocating to send troops into Gaza. I don't want IDF soldiers on the ground there, but there are many things that could be done. Number one, stop transferring over this aid to Gaza, which ends up going into the coffers of Hamas, which they end up using to build more smuggling tunnels or terror tunnels. The IDF caught another one, another terror tunnel just this past week. I think that's number 15 over the last year. Stop giving them supplies. Turn off the electricity. There are many things that can be done other than, number one, threats, which are not followed through upon, and number two, I don't believe we should send troops in there, but there are things we can do. Turn off the internet so the incitement in that form stops. Many things that can be done. Here, the Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, in an Arabic Facebook post, saying that Hamas is holding the Gaza residents hostage on behalf of Iran, appealing to Palestinians to overthrow the terror organization's rule over the small enclave. That is the correct approach, hoping that the Arabs in Gaza overthrow Hamas, but you have to help them. How do you help them? By stopping to enable them. If you're going to bolster Hamas, if you're going to sign, even directly or indirectly, different types of ceasefires with them, which are a joke, if you're going to continue with the supplies and the aid to Gaza, then don't expect the people to go and turn around and overthrow Hamas. Yes, Hamas seizes a lot of that equipment. Some of it does get to the residents, but my point is you have to shut them out entirely, completely. Stop, turn off the taps, turn off the electricity, stop supplying them with aid. And then, of course, we have this policy, the defense minister continued, if we see that the quiet is returned, there's an atmosphere of calm and security at the border with Gaza, we have no interest in making things difficult for the Gaza residents. Quiet is met with quiet. That is a failed policy because they used that quiet to build their arsenal of rockets and bombs and grenades and guns and terror tunnels. Enough with this quiet for quiet nonsense. It is a Band-Aid. It does not solve the problem. Okay, we need to think differently. We need to stop issuing blanket statements, blanket threats, and we need to solve the problem now because the South is still burning. Every single day we have firebomb kites and balloons and whatnot landing in Israel, and it is just continuing on and on and on with no end in sight. Enough is enough. The defense minister over the weekend announced that Israel will no longer permit diesel fuel or gas into Gaza as long as the violence continues, including the launching of these burning kites and balloons and whatnot. But how long will we stop allowing fuel into Gaza? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? I mean, we've seen this before, cutting off the nautical miles that the fishermen can go out and fish, cutting off the crossings for a day or two. Here we have the Lieberman ordering the immediate halt to the transfer of all fuel and gas, including that bought by Qatar, into Gaza, following this Friday's another Friday of heavy rioting and terrorism along the Gaza border. This Qatari-bought fuel had been entering Gaza in recent days in an attempt to alleviate the conditions in Gaza. This, according to the J Post, Israel had facilitated delivery of thousands of liters of fuel, hoping it would stem the weekly border clashes. again, enabling Hamas by providing them with fuel. Say once and for all, no more fuel. Again, let's see how many days this lasts. According to the IDF, there were 20,000 rioters, terrorists along the border fence on Friday, throwing rocks and grenades, Molotov cocktails at troops. 3 Arabs from Gaza were killed in one incident after there was a breach in the security fence. And one of the Gazans who blew a hole in the security fence and crossed into Israel was killed after approaching a soldier with a knife, reported by the Times of Israel, verified by the IDF on Sunday. In the most serious incident, the IDF said several Gazans planted a bomb by the fence. After it exploded and blew a hole in the fence, some 20, imagine this in your country, 20 armed Arabs rushing through, running towards a soldier stationed there. Most of them went back, but in this case, one Arab with a knife ran towards the soldiers who fired and killed him. It is daily, folks. It is taking place on a daily basis down there. Nevertheless, Canada, the U.S. neighbor to the north, Canada, remember the days of Stephen Harper? Remember the good old days of Canada? Well, things have changed there. According to TOI, Canada stepped up aid for Palestinian refugees on Friday, announcing a 50 million Canadian dollar gift for UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency, which essentially is the group that perpetuates the conflict with Israel, keeping people as so-called refugees in the various countries in Jordan and in Syria and in Gaza, instead of resettling them in the various places. And of course, the hate education coming out of UNRWA that we know about. But Canada saying that it has earmarked money, quote, meeting the basic education, health, and livelihood needs of millions of Palestinian refugees. In other words, more money for Hamas, more money towards hate education, more money towards weapons against Israel. So Canada, thanks very much. A statement added from Canada that a portion of the funds would be used, and I don't understand this, to, quote, improve neutrality within the agency, within UNRWA and its operations. What does that mean? Can anyone explain out there what does that mean? The money is going to go towards some type of peace education towards Israel. I'm not 100% clear what that means. Improving neutrality within the agency. You're going to pay them off, and all of a sudden they're going to be friends with Israel. They're going to stop their hate against Israel if Canada pays them off. I don't understand it. In 2016, Prime Minister Trudeau, his administration reversed cuts in aid, which Stephen Harper's predecessor had initiated, and committed more funds towards UNRWA, while the U.S., on the other hand, is stopping to fund UNRWA. So we do miss Stephen Harper and some serious leadership over there in Canada. One other item on our agenda before we get to Yishai Fleisher, B'Tselem. B'Tselem, the anti-Israel organization here, NGO, funded by European countries and other donors. They've been invited to address the UN Security Council on Thursday when it holds its monthly meeting on the Middle East. No surprise, though, from the UN. I mean, why not bring an anti-Israel organization, an organization that bashes Israel and the IDF and everything that this country stands for? Why not invite them to address the Security Council? J-Post reporting that Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, lashed out at B'Tselem for accepting the invitation, particularly one issued by a country like Bolivia. They're the ones who invited B'Tselem, which has called IDF soldiers, quote, murderers. Nevertheless, B'Tselem is on their way. The prime minister addressing it in at a conference last night. The prime minister saying B'Tselem is a, quote, disgrace. Lashing out also at this so-called Israeli NGO over its plans to speak out against Israel at the UN Security Council this week. He said, quote, how do I define B'Tselem? It's a disgrace. That is how I define B'Tselem, Netanyahu said in a talk that he gave to the Christian Media Summit in Jerusalem last night. So there you have it. B'Tselem invited to speak at the UN. I mean, I guess I wouldn't blame B'Tselem. I mean, if they get the invite, why not go take it, use it as an opportunity to bash Israel? I mean, that's what they're all about. So that is going to happen, looks like, this Thursday. My name is Josh Hasten. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. We are going to take a short break, come back with Yishai Fleisher, also a host here on the network, the Yishai Fleisher Show, and he is the international spokesperson for the Jewish community in Hebron, where new building has been approved by the Israeli government. I want to talk to him about that. Don't forget to get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook, Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. Short break. We will be back with Yishai.
The question is, why are the Jews there in the first place? The Jewish people have been yearning to return to their ancient homeland for a long time.
The Yishai Fleisher Show, the voice of a new generation of pro-Israel activists.
And there's only two kinds of minorities in the Middle East, armed or unarmed.
Inspiring minds to think differently.
That jihadism doesn't just attack Jews. It attacks Christians, and it mostly attacks Muslims.
Inspiration, spirituality, and politics.
So first and foremost, this country is here to defend Jewish people and to live in its ancestral homeland.
Listen to the Yishai Fleisher Show every week on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
And we are back. Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Don't forget, you get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten. On Twitter, at Josh Hasten. As I mentioned earlier in the show, the government yesterday approved the establishment of a new Jewish neighborhood in the city of Hebron, the ancient Jewish community of Hebron, the first such construction in 16 years. Who better to speak to other than Yishai Fleisher, international spokesperson for the Jewish community in Hebron, and of course, host here on the Land of Israel Network of the Yishai Fleisher Show. Yishai, welcome to the program, my man.
What an honor and a pleasure it is to be with you, Josh.
So this is some amazing news here yesterday, that the government has approved new construction in the Jewish community of Hebron. If you can detail some of the aspects of that new construction.
Okay, so we have a piece of land that has belonged to Jews basically from time immemorial and was repurchased by Jews about 200 years ago, and Jewish people have been living there for a long time. And we lost that land in 1929 in the jihadist Arab riots of 1929, and then started getting that land back. The Lubavitch Rebbe purchased that land actually beforehand, and we started getting that land back through legal processes and reacquired it. And what happened was that there was a small Jordanian bus stop that was not like a little bus station that was planted on that place. That's since then defunct. Close by, a big yeshiva was built called Yeshivat Shavei Hebron, and we had caravans, mobile homes, placed right next to. Right on this property. So they've been like little families been living in these mobile homes on this property. And we've been working for a lot of years to get government approval to actually develop this place. And as you mentioned, we haven't really built anything for about 16 years. 2005 is when we completed the last building project. In any case, Hebron, we have 80 families and a lot of young next generation people who want to move in here. We have a long list of people from all over the country and around the world that would love to live in Hebron, close to the tombs of the fathers and mothers here, and a lot of courageous people that are not afraid of the bad guys and want to live here. So we finally got that approval. Now, the approval of that actually happened in the Knesset yesterday was actually not the approval for the building, because we already had that approval. The press made it out to be as though that was approval for the actual building. That's not exactly correct. What happened yesterday was about 21 million shekel was moved from about 14 different ministries and government offices to the defense ministry in order to move a part of the army base that's actually also on that property, and to move it and to make way for that for the 31 apartments that we are planning to build, the 3 towers, 31 apartments. So that's what happened yesterday. But because it's such a big deal that Jews are moving back to Hebron, it made big news, and it took a government decision, an international kind of like a sense that the Trump administration is not going to give you a hard time about it, and all that just conspired together to make a big news story, which in fact should be, on the other hand, kind of very simple, which is Jews are living in Hebron again.
Yeah, you would think it would be simple just to build some buildings in a ancient Jewish community, but that's not the case. The Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman tweeted a congratulatory note after the government meeting and claimed credit for the project's approval. He said, "This is yet another important milestone in the extensive activities we are heading to strengthen settlements," these are his words, "in Judea and Samaria," reported by the Jerusalem Post. At the same time, you have people who are not so happy about this. You have people who want to, I believe, protest the decision, members of Knesset from some of the Arab parties and some of the Meretz types, if you will. I mean, is this now a done deal, or is there a way that they can still hamper the efforts to go ahead and, as you said, explained, move that army base in order to create room for these residential structures?
Let me put it to you this way, Josh. We have a fund dedicated just for the next legal battle. I mean, we certainly foresee that this is going to be a continuous, there's going to be more challenges, and there's going to be a Supreme Court challenge, which we're ready to face. And I think we feel very confident about our rights to this place. We feel confident about the land itself and about the development process, which we've gone through every crossing, every T and dotting every I, just to make sure that it's perfectly without a problem, which is not always simple in a large building project. So we expect to face some legal hurdles. You have people on the left, like Knesset member Tamar Zandberg, which I saw a fabulous tweet from her, and she said, "Build Hebron? We should be evacuating this community and destroying it. Why would we build it?" That's what she wrote. She was like, "If building Hebron, that's absurd. We should be, putting these folks on buses and getting them out of there." So, there's definitely the other side, but I think it's pretty simple that. I don't know, simple. I'll take that word back. I think it's a big deal that Jews are building in Hebron, but you could also see that people like Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman are tweeting this out and announcing this. Why? Because he realizes that this is actually the will of the majority of the Israeli people, and that this is going to score him political points, right? And that if it scores him political points, that actually what it means is a lot of people are for this. We know that because over the last 2 months, the Jewish months of Elul and Tishrei, we had about 200,000 visitors here, okay? And people come from all over the country to visit the tombs of the fathers and mothers. It's not the easiest trip in the world. It's a one-lane highway into, what ostensibly is a big Arab city, and yet people come out here. We have a big Shabbat coming up where we read about the purchase of the tomb of the fathers and mothers by Abraham, and we expect about 35,000 people here. So there's what I'm trying to say is the people of Israel, in Israel and around the world, feel the incredible rights and importance of Jewish people living in this place. And therefore, today's Israeli coalition feels safe announcing this kind of thing because they realize that it'll actually be good for more people who will vote for them because they see they get what the people of Israel want. So, yes, we'll face challenges, but yes, there's a lot of interest in doing so. I want to tell you something. We're talking about a community of so far 80 families, and with the advent of these new apartments, we'll talk about 110 families living in this town. I mean, it's amazingly tiny, right? But I guess it's super impactful in Israel and around the world. This was the headline story in the Times of Israel, another media outlet yesterday. So I guess it is very important. And what can I tell you? We are totally dedicated to make sure that this actually happens and doesn't get blocked.
That's great. I actually was just there on Chol HaMoed, one of the intermediate days of the holiday of Sukkot. I had a great time, and it was no problem getting in and out. It was very organized. And for those who want to visit, I mean, for where I live in Gush Etzion, it's a 15, 20-minute drive. It's not that far away from Jerusalem either, so it shouldn't be a problem. If you haven't visited Hebron, I encourage you to do it. But it's interesting you pointed out the tweet by member
Tamar
of
Zandberg.
Meretz, Tamar Zandberg, with the city, people don't realize 200,000 Arabs who control more than 80% of the city. I mean, you're telling me that 80 families are what's keeping them up at night. It's completely ridiculous, to put it mildly. But
right, but people also use people also use what you just said the other way, which is, well, why do you need to have Jews in a town that has 200,000 Arabs? Like you're saying, it's so few Jews. What are you making such a big deal out of this for?
Yeah.
And they say, well, what are you making such a big deal out of this for? What do you need to have Jews in this place?
Right.
And
why do you need 8 million Jews surrounded by 350 million Arabs? I mean, that's what I would say back to them with that logic.
That's true, and another logic is that in the end, Zionism is a protectorate for the Jewish people. It's a place that we defend ourselves, and I guess its first goal is to defend the body of the Jewish people. But Zionism isn't just that. We're also returning to our ancestral culture, returning to our ancestral homeland, and reconnecting with the footsteps of our fathers and mothers. Hebron is a Jewish community that has existed for 3,500 years. 3,500 years we've lived in this town. We've always lived in this town. We've always been close to our fathers and mothers. No other nation has such a marker, and we guard it zealously. And so our essential identity has been connected to this town. And the Torah, our essential document, tells us this story. It's been passed down through generations. 2,000 years ago, a Jewish king, Herod, built a monument, a giant monument at the top of these tombs. In other words, in simple terms, it's important to us. It's important to who we are. And so we can never walk away from this place. We never have walked away from this place. And the government of Israel today is recognizing the will of the people to reconnect with this place, to stop the two-state solution ideas of handing large chunks of land to the control of a jihadist entity that will only war against us even more and certainly not bring any of this, awaited peace. It's quite the opposite. And so we are doing, a few things at once: connecting to our forefathers and mothers in our history, holding on to our land, pushing back on the two-state solution. All of those are true. And I think that today we've turned a corner with the help of this Israeli administration, with the help of the current American administration, with the will of the Israeli people that has tested the two-state solution option and has seen its failures recurrently. So now we've turned a corner and we're going the other way. We're going towards building, holding on, and Jewish sovereignty in this land.
Amen to that. Yishai Fleisher, International Spokesperson for the Jewish community of Hebron. Congratulations on yesterday's news. Keep up the holy work you're doing. It's so vital to the future of the Jewish people. I appreciate you taking your time to come on the show today. Keep up your great work here at the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com. And let's talk again soon. More good news.
Thank you, Josh, and I love your show. Thanks for all that you do.
Thanks, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today. We are out of time. Thanks so much for joining us here on Israel Uncensored, the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. For Monday, the 15th of October, 2018, the 6th of Cheshvan, 5779. Don't forget to get in touch with me during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. Thanks again to Binyamin Bresky, Tabitha Epstein for all the important work she does as well, getting these shows up, and everyone else here at the Land of Israel Network. Most importantly, between now and when we speak again, please God, next Monday, everyone out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Shalom, shalom, from a beautiful day here in Jerusalem, the capital of the State of Israel.
Torah thoughts and inspiration from the heartland of Israel. Tune in every week to The Soul of Israel with Rabbi Shlomo Katz on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.